Hey guys, Urban Combat Survivor here. This is going to be a video response to American Game Fowl. He did a reply to the video I put up earlier today, hopping into the conversation about community property versus individual property, how you pull things in a breakdown situation. And I don't know if you watched many of my videos, Game Fowl, so normally what I do in these kind of conversations is I'm just going to talk directly to you, so it's like we're having a conversation. I hope you're okay with that. I appreciate that you laid the foundation for your thinking process, and I'm going to try to do the same here. In my scenario that I'm talking about here, I make a distinction between the core group of people that I've already been planning with. What I'm thinking about is a larger community, and I think you are as well by your example of people coming in and whether or not they get a vote or they are allowed to join your community. So we're talking about, I believe both of us are talking about a larger community in this conversation. In that respect, you said you're coming from a base of everybody puts all consumable goods into a community pool. I already have kind of a problem with doing that for a lot of reasons. It all boils down to you're taking the first step on the road towards communism. I see no reason why every person should not continue to retain their own personal private property, and that barter can then take place later on down the road. I don't think anything should be put into a communal pool like that, with very few exceptions, and those few exceptions come with a truckload of caveats that I'll get to at the end of the video. In that light, you said, one of your examples was if someone has a barn and the community decides that for whatever reason they need to tear that barn down, you think the person who owns the property that barn is on should get more votes or more of a vote than other people in the community get. And I think that the person who owns that property that the barn is on should get the only vote on what happens with that barn. It's his barn on his property. He owns it, and that's it. End of story. If someone can come to him and make a case that will convince him that this barn needs to come down, that's all well and good, but it's still his decision because it's his personal property. He owns this. Nobody else gets a say. In my opinion, it doesn't change. If we have a breakdown situation, the whole point, the whole purpose in us putting together communities, in my case, a safe zone and trying to extend that safe zone, the purpose in this is to reestablish the rule of law, at least in a basic rudimentary form, to reestablish the rule of law. Well, the rule of law, in my opinion, has to be based on the United States Constitution in this country. If you're basing it on any other doctrine, on any other philosophy, or any other mindset, then what you're basically doing is rejecting the initial concept of this country. Now, I understand it's been hijacked. Oh man, it's been hijacked. In the last 100 years, it's been made almost unrecognizable. But that doesn't mean the foundation document, and that's why the rule of law in my safe zone is going to be the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Everything after that's getting dropped in the toilet where it belongs. But those things, that is the foundation for the rule of law in my area. That's going to govern and restrict the leadership that is later elected, and I think an election has to happen pretty quickly, in the same way that it does our government. I don't see why there should be any difference on the scale of a community versus an entire national government. The restrictions should be the same, the balances should be the same, and the representation should be the same. I think when things first break down, those who step into a leadership role are basically going to just get the nod from people around them that they are the leader. It's going to be acknowledged. I think there's going to be an unspoken election of who is in charge. But as soon as things start settling down, I think it's time to start talking about maybe not having direct elections, but at the very least putting together a fair kind of council, maybe a single house parliament or a single house Congress, just at first, to get the foundational leadership process started. At which point anything that may actually go into a community pool, for instance, people might donate ammunition to a security service that's going to help keep the safe zone or community safe. I don't believe that the person who donates this chunk of ammunition gets more say in how that ammunition is used. If you've donated this chunk of ammo, it is no longer yours. It is now given away. It now falls under the responsibility of those who are in charge, whether it is one person who is elected, an ultimate leader, or it's a council, or it's a combination of the two, or however it's done in your community is going to have to be worked out for you. I think I've pretty much worked out how it's going to work in my safe zone, and I will be doing a video on that at some point down the road. And the next video I'm going to be doing on my safe zone series, for anybody watching this, is going to be about this placing leadership, elections, and representation, that kind of stuff. So back to it. I think your barn example is a perfect example in going down the road of communism, or is it tyranny, or is it feudalism, or what is it? Why should anyone else get a say in his property and how it's used? The ammo. No one else gets a say in how I use my ammo, and I do not get a say in how you use your ammo. Ultimately, I think if you cut all the crap away from this, if you cut all the minutia and all of the examples and details that we're talking about in these scenarios we're throwing back and forth, I think what this all really comes down to is how much you believe in certain key principles. Do you believe in individual determination? Above and beyond anything, do you believe in individual determination? Do you believe in personal responsibility, moral integrity, intellectual honesty? Do you believe in these things for yourself? The very nature of accepting completely the concept of individual determination and individual responsibility, personal responsibility, by its very nature, makes you confer that same onto other people. I am responsible for myself, and you are responsible for yourself. I'm a hypocrite if I believe that I should have the right of individual determination, but for some reason I feel I can take that away from someone else. I don't feel that way at all, and I hope that anyone in the prepper community really pays attention to this, because that's what it really comes down to, is individual determination. Do you have the right in any circumstance to take somebody else's property? This goes back to this silly game, I think, that is played starting with school children. If a man steals a loaf of bread to feed his family, is he really a thief? Yes, he's a thief. The question there is, that's framing the debate in such a way that is, in my opinion, dishonest and ridiculous. Is he a thief? Absolutely. The question determined that he is a thief. He stole a loaf of bread to feed his family. He stole a loaf of bread. He stole. He's a thief. Now, if you want to add mitigating circumstances and, you want to start weighing in justifiable theft, that's a whole different conversation. But it's absolutely locked in. Yes, he's a thief. That's my opinion on that. And I think in a breakdown situation, we're really going to need to strip things down to that basic level, and build from a foundation of stripped away, no bullshit, hard rock foundation, solid foundation. And it comes back to individual determination. All of the things that I've heard other people talking about, how much more of a vote this person gets than that person, this all removes the philosophy of personal responsibility, of individuality. And I think what that's doing is moving completely away from the concept of America. If you don't like America as it was conceived, not as it is today necessarily, but as it was conceived, then absolutely continue down the road that you're on. But in the end, you gave another example of a young guy that comes in and wants to contribute absolutely nothing to the community. He's there because his father owns a property and he's staying on dad's property. But he won't work, he won't contribute, he won't do anything. Well, in my opinion, then he has pretty much two choices. Either daddy carries him and daddy provides his food, or he starves because he hasn't earned any food. See, nobody's going to go around with a bowl and give each person a little bowl of food. Everyone earns their own. If I have a bunch of food and you do not, look, I think people are good at heart, genuinely good at heart. There are a few scumbags out there that would take advantage of these situations, and I think there's going to be a lot more of them than some people realize. But for the most part, I think people are fairly good-hearted. And we're all going to try to help others as much as we can help them within reason. That doesn't mean we're going to carry freeloaders. We're not going to support useless eaters, as it were. But charity is a different thing. Helping out your neighbor, helping out your fellow man is a different thing. But once you move from me willingly giving something to mandating that something be given, or mandating that it be taken, and someone else gets to determine how it's distributed, you're sowing the seeds of a violent conflict inside your community. Because you come try to take my food that I've put away, and I've already struggled now to establish my safe zone. And now you think you're going to come take my food from within my safe zone? Did my guns suddenly stop working that I can't defend this stuff? No, I think what you're heading towards with that is utter conflict. You're heading for people turning on each other and forming into small armed groups against each other and going into a tiny little war. I think it's just bad long-term planning. So, anything given to the community is now under the complete responsibility of the leadership that's been elected or appointed. Other than that, everybody keeps their own stuff. If you use a combination of true free market trade and true republic-style representation and leadership, then I think very quickly you will establish a solid rule of law that can start to grow and thrive, even in a breakdown situation. Once you start trying to add in these hybrid systems and all this other stuff, I think what you're doing is, well, you're certainly not building the foundation of a republic. You're not restoring the concepts of the founding documents. So, charity is a wonderful thing, but once you mandate something, it's no longer charity. That's now, whatever you want to call it, fascism, socialism, communism. I guess everybody's going to have a different opinion on that, but in the end, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think that it starts on a flawed foundation, at least in my opinion. It starts on a flawed foundation of the concept of putting things into a community pool in the first place. Individual rights, in my opinion, always trump community rights. I, as an individual, get to choose for myself. I get to determine my fate. Nobody else gets to do that for me. And I don't get to do that for anybody else. If I choose to help someone else, I have chosen that. Nobody gets to force that. Nobody gets to tax that from me. And I think you can get a community going, a safe zone, moving in a solid, positive direction fairly quickly with established leadership and a marketplace without really having to tax, other than perhaps requiring that each person put X amount of hours, say 3 hours or 4 hours a day, 5 days in the week, have to go towards helping the community as an alternative to taxation. And that would be things like community patrols, any missions that have to go out, that kind of thing. And that would be determined again by the leadership that was appointed by the people. So I hope that I understood your video correctly this time, and and that I was able to effectively communicate. I didn't want to hop too far ahead. I know there's a lot to the concept of trying to tie together the election process and the free market process in a cohesive way with the examples that we're talking about. But I think I already said, but I'll say it again. I'm going to do a video very soon. My next SHTF Safe Zone video is going to be about electing or appointing a leadership, whether it's an individual or a council. And actually, this helped solidify some of that in my head, so I appreciate the conversation, guys. So if anybody else wants to hop in, comments, questions, private messages, video responses, you guys, hop in, do your thing. All opinions are welcome, as long as they're, actually useful and you're not just saying, "Oh, you're a friggin' idiot," that kind of stuff. But so I think I got everything in there I wanted to say. Well, I probably didn't, but what are you gonna do? So there it is. Urban Combat Survivor signing off.